Attorney General Bondi, we are in a deeply alarming moment where law and order is being replaced by chaos and corruption. And
that Pam Bondi is going to go down as possibly the most corrupt attorney general.
Pam Bondi has announced she's opening a grand jury investigation into Barack Obama's involvement in the 2016 probe.
Patty Murray just shredded Pam Bondi in a Senate hearing so badly that the room went from tense to deadly silent in seconds. What started as routine questioning quickly turned into a public dismantling of Bondi's decisions, her priorities, and the company she keeps.
the complaint also accuses this administration of firing the whistleblower for, quote, telling the truth to the court.
And the things that came out under oath will raise far bigger questions than Bondi ever planned to answer.
This is not the country I know or the values I believe in, and I hope that colleagues on both sides of the aisle will agree with that.
Pam Bondi didn't just step into the Attorney General's office quietly in 2025. She came in with a reputation. Handpicked by President Trump for the top job at the Department of Justice, she was known for one thing above all else: absolute, unshakable loyalty to him.
I'm not going to talk about anything that's alleged.
But behind the scenes, there were already whispers. Whispers that her loyalty came at a cost, that she was shielding Trump from the political fallout of the still unfolding Epstein Files controversy, a scandal that was pulling in names from every corner of power.
Your department's independence and its capacity to do its job have eroded before our eyes.
She came armed with a thick, deliberate stack of ammunition, a dossier packed with documented grant cuts, whistleblower complaints, and allegations that Bondi's DOJ was openly ignoring laws passed by Congress. From the first words out of her mouth, Murray set the tone. She didn't dance around her point. Law and order is being replaced by chaos and corruption, whatever Trump wants. It was a direct shot, and she wasn't planning to let up.
We have seen respected career officials who've been fired for doing their job.
One by one, Murray started laying out the charges. She pointed to respected DOJ officials, career professionals with decades of service, who had been fired or pushed out in waves. She highlighted entire offices that had been gutted, programs defunded, and rules brushed aside without explanation.
Thousands more are being pushed out with your buyouts and the threat of mass firings, and entire divisions are being eliminated.
She wasn't talking about small tweaks or bureaucratic reshuffles. Murray framed it as something far more deliberate, a systematic dismantling of the DOJ's independence, piece by piece, to bring it fully under political control.
Thousands more are being pushed out with your buyouts and the threat of mass firings, and entire divisions are being eliminated.
Murray read directly from it. Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove and other senior DOJ leaders were accused of outright defying federal court orders, not bending them, not contesting them through legal channels, ignoring them. And the way the complaint described it, this wasn't an accident or misunderstanding.
Detainees, including U.S. citizens, being shipped overseas without any due process. Elected officials are detained for conducting oversight, and a U.S. senator gets tackled to the ground for asking questions at a press conference.
It alleged a deliberate pattern, a lack of candor, deliberate delay, and disinformation when dealing with the courts. That's the kind of language you don't use lightly in a legal filing, especially when it's backed by a whistleblower who was inside the chain of command.
The complaint also accuses this administration of firing the whistleblower for, quote, telling the truth to the court.
The most damning line? The accusation that the whistleblower was fired for telling the truth to the court. That's not just retaliation. It's a direct attack on the rule of law. The legal weight of a statement like that is enormous. It's the kind of claim that can pull entire administrations into years of legal scrutiny because it goes beyond misconduct. It strikes at the DOJ's constitutional role.
For this, she will not allow conduct.
When Murray pressed Bondi for a commitment of a simple yes or no on whether she would stop such conduct inside her DOJ, the response was almost surreal. Bondi didn't say yes. She didn't even acknowledge the gravity of the allegations.
Finest people I know, and
I was asking about the
people
conduct.
I know.
It was a moment where the subtext became text. This wasn't about defending DOJ policy or disputing evidence. It was about showing, in front of the entire committee, that personal loyalty came before legal obligation. Murray's questions had been about conduct, about whether the Attorney General would tolerate defiance of the courts. Bondi's answers made it clear she wouldn't even entertain the question if it meant putting distance between herself and Trump's inner circle.
Abruptly terminated over 300 public safety grants that had already gone through a very rigorous and fair and apolitical application process with no explanation. This is funding to investigate and prosecute drug trafficking, to support foster care kids who experienced abuse or neglect.
The numbers here weren't vague estimates. In April 2025, the DOJ had abruptly terminated over 300 public safety grants that had already been approved through a rigorous apolitical process. These weren't new proposals or untested pilot programs. They were fully vetted initiatives that communities were counting on, and they weren't minor projects.
To expand access to forensic exams to prosecute violent crimes like sexual assault. These really senseless cancellations have already forced public safety organizations.
Murray laid them out in plain terms: grants to fund rape kit testing, to prosecute child abuse cases, to dismantle drug trafficking operations, and to support foster care for children who had already suffered abuse or neglect.
We have cut grants. I think we've cut 6%. But if we have cut a grant that you feel should not be cut, please reach out to me. I will personally look at it. We've turned multiple grants back on.
Each of these programs had been subjected to a lengthy review process before funding was approved, meaning the cancellations weren't about weeding out inefficiency. They were about pulling the plug on work that was already deemed necessary and effective.
Were you aware that that grant helps our authorities prosecute rape and sexual assault?
I have no idea about that specific grant you're talking about. That's why I said it.
The consequences weren't hypothetical. Organizations had already started laying off staff. Services for survivors were being cut. Critical investigations were stalling midstream because the financial lifeline had been severed without warning.
I can absolutely do that, and my staff will get that to you, but those are two critical ones that I just wanted to ask you about today.
Again, we've turned many grants back on and will continue to.
When Murray zeroed in on one particular grant, the funding that expanded access to sexual assault forensic exams, she asked Bondi point blank if she had been aware of what that money supported before it was cut. Bondi's answer was jaw-dropping. "I have no idea about that specific grant you're talking about."
In 2002, Congress actually codified the office as a permanent, separate, and independent office to implement the Violence Against Women Act.
Patty Murray didn't treat each scandal as a separate, isolated event. She methodically tied them together until they looked less like random controversies and more like a coordinated operating style inside Pam Bondi's Department of Justice. One thread ran through all of it. The people who spoke up, the ones who tried to hold the department accountable, were silenced.
It makes grant programs less effective, and it places a lot more barriers for victims and services they need.
The protected whistleblower complaint against Deputy Attorney General Amal Bouv wasn't a one-off. Murray reminded the committee that multiple internal voices had been pushed out or retaliated against when they challenged decisions that undermined court orders or basic legal obligations.
I will follow the law, but I will not keep that as a separate grant entity. You and I can disagree all day long on what the law is. That's being consolidated into the Office of Justice Programs.
From there, she moved to the watchdog offices that were supposed to be the independent eyes and ears inside the DOJ. Offices with statutory mandates, designed to operate separately from political influence, had been hollowed out or outright dismantled. Their capacity to investigate misconduct and enforce compliance had been reduced to the point where they no longer posed a real check on leadership.
We codified the office as a permanent, separate, and independent office. So that you need to go back and take a look at that. I know my time is out.
Then came the statutory violations. Murray zeroed in on the Office on Violence Against Women, codified in 2002 as a permanent, independent office within the Department of Justice. Bondi's plan to fold it into the Office of Justice Programs, slashing its budget by about a third, wasn't a policy disagreement. It was a direct sidestep of federal law. And when confronted with the fact, Bondi didn't offer a legal justification. She simply said she and Murray could disagree all day long on what the law is, as if the statute's plain text was open to personal interpretation.
And even if he had, not a crime, technically.
And while Murray was drawing that picture in the Senate, outside the hearing, another set of moves from Bondi was making headlines. she had just announced 2 high-profile grand jury investigations.
It was announced this week that Pam Bondi has officially sent that criminal referral from Tulsi Gabbard, who, by the way, can't even write a criminal referral, to prosecutors in the DOJ and instructed them to convene a grand jury to determine whether or not to indict former President Obama on charges of treasonous conspiracy.
The first targeted former President Barack Obama's handling of the 2016 Trump-Russia probe. The second went after special counsel Jack Smith over his prosecution of Trump in earlier criminal cases. The timing wasn't subtle. Both investigations were into matters that had already been examined exhaustively, and not by Democratic-led bodies, but by Republican-controlled investigations. In Obama's case, the claims about misconduct in the 2016 Russia investigation had been reviewed by special counsel John Durham under Attorney General Bill Barr, who found no criminal conduct. The Senate Intelligence Committee, chaired in part by Republican Marco Rubio, had reached the same conclusion. Russia had interfered in the election, but there was no prosecutable wrongdoing by Obama or his administration.
Being the genius investigator that she is, she somehow found them.
Jack Smith's prosecution of Trump had also been scrutinized through the judicial process, with no evidence of misconduct found by any credible authority. Yet Bondi's DOJ was now announcing grand jury probes into both, framing them as if new information had surfaced when, in reality, the factual record was already settled. What happens next is anyone's guess, but if you want to stay updated, make sure to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments below.